Hey guys, thanks so much for coming. There's so many of you. I'm gonna do my best to bring you as much value as I can in a short amount of time. And we're gonna talk about a lot of things today. In my life, I found a really distinct correlation between trauma and as I grew into an entrepreneur, entrepreneurship. So we're gonna talk about kind of how those things meld into each other and also things that we can do to ensure that we mitigate the risk associated with both. So I set up here on Google Slides, my finger's gonna be in the way the whole time. There is a link here. If you go to this link, you can ask questions throughout the course of the presentation. I wanna give everyone space. There'll be a Q&A at the end, but as you're thinking, if things pop up and come to mind, like send them in there. So, understanding how trauma affects success and what we can do about it is super important as entrepreneurs. How many people in here are an entrepreneur? Raise your hand. And solopreneur or freelancer? Yeah, so pretty much everybody in here. So here's a bit of an overview of what we're going to discuss. Talk a little bit about myself, my journey, how I got here, specifically how I got here to Bali too, my entrepreneurial visions, understanding trauma. We're actually going to talk about the science behind trauma, what it does to our brains, what it does to our bodies. We're going to talk about the importance of self-care, right? I think a lot of us have a self-care routine, but the science behind it and the understanding of why it's important can be really profound. And then we'll talk about 6 habits that I created that are the foundation for the way that I live my life. This is a quote that is super impactful to me, that kind of is set as the precedent for my life and who I am and what my mission is moving forward. And as though trauma may be our foundation, it is not our future, right? So many people who grow up in a trauma state are trapped in what I call the vortex, where they just can't seem to move forward, where everything seems to be stuck. And we'll find that that relates to entrepreneurship, especially in ways of self-sabotage and when we get in our own way from reaching our goals. So I like to open this up with breathing. Our autonomic nervous system is always going, and breath is one of the most important things that we can actually control. Oftentimes we don't realize it. Even right now as I stand here, my heart's beating a little faster, my breath's a little bit shallow. And when we come up against big obstacles in life, our breath can kind of give us an indication of where we're at. I've had trouble with a lot of different breathing exercises not really fitting who I am. And so over time, I've tried every one you can imagine, from the square breathing, 4x4x4, to Wim Hof method, all of these different breathing modalities. And I've actually found that the one I created worked best for me. Now, this may not work best for you, but as we get started, I want to bring everybody present. I know a lot of us, it's the end of the workday, we have plans tonight, but I want to bring everybody like right here, right now with me. So breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest, right? When you're relaxed, it lowers your heartbeat, relaxes your muscles, your breathing becomes slower, and your blood pressure decreases when you take control of your breath. So I invented a technique called OCE breathing, which means open, control, exist. And this is based on formula of 4 seconds in, 7 seconds hold, which is the control, and 5 seconds out, which is the exist. So science shows that we find our most relaxed state on the hold and the exhale of our breath. So we're going to go through this process here together. So you're welcome to join me. We'll just do it for about 1 minute here, kind of get our bodies relaxed. So if you find a position where you can get comfortable, that'd be great. And if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You don't have to. Some people like to when they're getting into their body, into their breath. I'll just kind of guide you through it here for a minute. So get comfortable, shake it out. I don't know about you guys, but I've had a hell of a day. Yeah, we got some yes. Yeah. So we're going to breathe in through our mouth. Take a big breath. Just let it out. Yeah. Lots of sighs. Good, good. We're going to close our mouth and breathe in through our nose for a count of 4. So 4, that's opening. We're just opening ourselves up. And we're going to hold that breath for a count of 7, and that's controlling. And we're going to exhale for 5. You just feel your bodies become more relaxed. And we're going to do that again. So opening for 4. Controlling for 7, just holding it. Letting that oxygen fill your lungs, fill your bodies. And we're going to exist for 5, just letting it out. Just feeling your feet on the ground, feeling your body in the space, feeling the warmness. And one more time, we're going to breathe in together for 4. And holding it for 7, controlling the breath. and existing for 5, just let it out. Amazing. Who feels a little bit better, more in the space right now after that? Yeah, I like it. Good, good, good. So this is a practice that you can do at any time. You can do it at your desk. You can do it on your motorbike. Do it wherever. Just find the space to give yourself time to breathe. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am. So I'm actually a trauma survivor. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more and why that's important and why that and entrepreneurship are important to me. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm now into my 5th business venture, 3rd one that's legal. Let's just say when I was young, I did some things that weren't so up. And I'm a mentor. So what I do now is I help people who have suffered trauma get out of what I call the vortex and take the first step in taking control back of their lives, giving people what they know is the power to become who they are. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit as well. So my childhood started not that dissimilar from a lot of children who grew up in the United States. This is a picture on the far left of my mother and my father. That was one of the last pictures I had with him. After I was 2 years old, he left and never saw him again. My mother was a drug addict and an alcoholic, right? So we know many families are affected by this disease. By the time that I was 2, my mother had cut my finger off. So to give you an idea of the kind of chaos environment that I grew up in, this is the kind of violence that was around my home. By the time that I was 10, which is closer to this picture, I'd been in 40 different homes. I'd literally lived in 40 different homes being homeless as my mom would go out on these tirades of drug and alcohol. And in this process, she married a hyper-abusive man who would beat my brothers and I and at times put us in the hospital. So imagine that, this entire childhood built in the foundation of chaos, trauma. I was definitely in the vortex. When I was 9, I saw my uncle get arrested. So that blue shirt he has on is actually Indiana State Penitentiary dress blues. This was family picture day, right after Easter. So my family, we all went together to see him. This is me by the time I'm 12. This is my 8th grade yearbook photo. And I am very high in this picture. I started getting stoned for the first time when I was 12 years old. It's my way to kind of numb the environment and the chaos that I was growing up in. By the time that I was 19, I didn't graduate high school on time. In fact, got threatened to be kicked out twice. And at this point, I was already really deep into drugs and alcohol. And these are my brothers and my sister, who we all kind of come from the same background. We're a bit all over the place, and we've all had different journeys. But one of the biggest reasons that I do this, and one of the biggest reasons that I talk and want to educate people, is for them and for other children, so that when the time comes, there'll be space where that no longer exists. By my mid-20s, I was totally into the vortex. This is the spot, I don't know if any of you guys have been here before, where you just can't seem to do anything right, where you're stuck in your own path, where you're like, what the fuck is happening in my life? I'm gonna raise my hand because I've been there. I see a couple of you raising your hands too. Yeah, I think a lot of us have been there. You know, we are the stories that we tell ourselves. My story was that I needed to chase money. I thought the solution to poverty was money. And so I went out into corporate America, and I went from being homeless to having one of the best lives you could ever imagine on paper. As you can see here, I look a little bit bigger in these photos. In this process of working and making money and striving in business, I actually gained about 150 pounds, which is like 85 kilos, something in that window. I'm so embarrassed by this picture at the top, but I love to show it because I was a part of the party lifestyle. Drugs and alcohol, sex was everywhere around me, but I was so miserable. I was using it as a coping mechanism, right? Because it's so much easier to face things intoxicated than to do it sober. And I was living a double life. At the bottom, I had already stepped fully into my entrepreneurial pursuits. So at this point, I had become a professional wedding photographer. And this photo, I'm about 5 years into my career. I've been published in magazines, on billboards, been on television shows. All these amazing things were happening in my business career. But in my personal life, it was a disaster. was actually leading a double life. And one year I got voted as the best wedding photographer, second best wedding photographer. I believe I was number one. It was rigged in the state of Indiana. But I had two girlfriends simultaneously who didn't know each other existed. Now imagine that juxtaposition, how crazy that is. It's because I was far too afraid to face the truth. And I was looking for love and admiration in external places, not here, not where it actually mattered. Shortly after that, I started another business venture, a t-shirt clothing brand, which was an e-commerce company that I sold online. And eventually I was totally drowning in my choices. Drugs and alcohol and all these things had fully taken over my life. Business was amazing, except I was suicidal. And on my 26th birthday, at the height of both of my businesses, I put a gun in my mouth. And I pulled the trigger, and for whatever reason, it did not fire. And that is the only reason that I'm here talking to you guys right now. For some fucking reason, which I will never understand, it didn't fire. And then I had to do the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, and that was look at myself in the mirror. You know, I think we all can agree that we superficially will check ourselves out from time to time, but this was the first time in my life I had literally stood in front of this mirror, eye to eye with myself, and took a look at who I was. And in that moment, I was super ashamed. I was so ashamed of the person that I'd become because I promised myself that I would never be that person. I would never be the person based on the expectations of all the other people around me. But because of my choices, I was stuck in that. And then I decided to rewrite my story. This is the most important thing that I've done, is made the decisions, I made the choices to step in to become the person that I am right now. And it was a long and arduous journey. It was full of a lot of pain and a lot of darkness. But on the backside of that darkness was something brilliant. And now my life is better than it's ever been. And it started with daily practices, right? So about 7 years ago, I got into yoga. I got into Bikram yoga particularly because I was like, well, regular yoga seems pretty easy. So I'm gonna do this really hard yoga and challenge myself. And then I started working out more. And then I got really, really sick. Because what I didn't realize is you have to pay for your indiscretions. At least I did. Maybe you don't. I hope you're lucky and you don't. But I almost died twice. This is me once in the hospital before a CAT scan, and this is me on a liquid diet for 21 days, drinking the same formula that they give patients in the hospital who are in comas. I had literally destroyed my body, and at 28 years old, I was about to die. This is me last summer in Portland, and this is me last fall in Portland. That's a difference of 6 years. And today, here I am in Bali, talking to you amazing human beings because of a few simple things, all based around choice. And that's what we're going to talk about. And I believe that everyone is capable of becoming the person that they know they are. I believe that everyone in this room has the power inside right here to be anything that they want to be, anything that they choose to be. That process begins with recognizing what's happening in your body and your mind. When you grow up in a trauma state, it's very often that you're disassociated. So your brain's over here, right? But your body's over here, doing two totally different things. Has anybody ever done something and you're like, why the hell did I just do that? Right? Totally like, what is going on? And you got to build healthy tools, right? So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about. How do you build the healthy tools, especially in entrepreneurship, right? My entrepreneurial pursuits were amazing, but my personal life was garbage. Doesn't do you a lot of good to have a great business as everybody around you hates you, right? You got to develop self-love, right? I think this is the most important thing that we can do, regardless of if you're an entrepreneur or not. Like, we have to love ourselves who we are. We have to love our power. We have to love the ability that we have to make change and impact in the world. And we have to choose health, right? It's easy to say I want to be healthy, but it's different to choose it, to step into it, to do the things that we know we need to do to be healthy, right? So I hope that as we go on this journey, we get a little bit more of understanding. The science, to me, is the most important part of all this because I am analytical. I need the rhyme and reason behind everything. And without science, we can call it whatever we want. But the science that I'm about to show you proves everything that we're going to talk about. And for the last 6 years, I have studied trauma and the effects on the human brain and body. For the last 34 years, almost 34 years, I have been studying life, right? And for almost 20 years, entrepreneurship. I have seen the good and the bad, the despicable and the amazing of what it is that involves being an entrepreneur. Mental health around the world. So, mental health around the world, this is super important. And according to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration in the United States, 70% of human beings have suffered a traumatic experience before the age of 18. That's 7 in 10. So in this room, chances are most of us have suffered some kind of traumatic experience before we turned 18 years old. We're going to talk about something really important to me. It's called the ACE score, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. In 1996, Dr. Vincent Felitti and the California Center for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente did a study of 18,600 people to determine the correlation of trauma and health. And it starts with these 10 questions that we're going to look at right now. Keep this number to yourself, but it's going to be important. This is for you to know. This is not to share. Keep this to yourself. But you'll see why this number that you're going to come up with is very important, because there's a correlation between mental and physical health and how you score on this test. And I have the resources that I'll share at the end where you can go and cite all of this that I'm talking about. So it's a series of 10 questions. And for each question that you answer yes to, you're going to give yourself 1 point. So keep this to yourself as we go through. Did a parent or other adult swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you? If so, that's a yes, and that's 1 point. Did a parent or other adult grab, push, slap, throw you, or injure you? Did an adult ever touch you or fondle you or attempt to have intercourse with you? Did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special? Did you ever feel like you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, and had no one to protect you, or too high or drunk to take care of you? For instance, like if you needed to see the doctor. Were your parents separated or divorced? Were one of your parents grabbed, slapped, kicked, beaten, or hit by the other? Did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs? Street drugs are going to be like heroin and crack, meth, things like that. Was a household member depressed or mentally ill? Or did a household member attempt suicide? And finally, did a household member go to prison? So look at these for just one more moment and remember what your number is.
What age are we looking at?
Younger than 18. Yeah.
Can you go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are these questions from?
These are from the ACE score and Dr. Vincent Felitti. Yep, so I have the resources. I'll send it to you when we're done. And so these are the numbers on average. So if you answered yes to one of those questions, there's an 87% chance that you actually answered yes to 2 or more of those questions. Once you get to answering 4 of those questions yes, there is a 4x increase in chronic disease. Heart attack, pulmonary embolism, asthma, diabetes, stroke, emphysema. And the number of traumatic experiences on average, so 30% of people in this study, 16% had 2, 19% had 3, and 15% had 4 or more. And this was the analysis of the survey done by Dr. Felitti, Kaiser Permanente, and the California CDC. All this information is available for you guys. And these are the effects of trauma in adulthood. There's a 2,000% increased chance that you become a smoker. A 2,200% increased chance that you'll become an alcoholic. A 5,000% increased chance that you will be depressed. and a 5,100% increased chance that you will be suicidal. Now let's talk about the effects on these things on the brain. So we know that the amygdala is responsible for our fear response under chronic stress, right? Have you guys ever had a moment where all of a sudden you're almost in an accident, or you see a snake and you're like, oh wait, that's not actually a poisonous snake, or something weird happens, all of a sudden your heart's pounding out of your chest, you can't breathe, your hands are sweaty? That's your amygdala responding. It triggers our nervous system. And the amygdala controls where our memories are stored and how. And then again, talking about the heart racing, sweating, nausea. And so our bodies are broken down in the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic is our fight, flight, or freeze response. So those moments when your amygdala and hippocampus are triggered and you're like, oh shit, I need to get out of here right now, that's your fight, flight, or freeze. When you're resting and digesting, you're relaxed, you're in a good mood, like after we just breathed together, that's your parasympathetic nervous system. I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather have this one activated more than the other one, right? The sympathetic, this speeds up your body, tenses you up, makes you more alert, and your functions not critical to survival shut down. If you've ever been super terrified on a roller coaster and peed your pants, that's why. Maybe just me. And the parasympathetic is the counterbalance. It restores your body to the state of calm, to this normal, relaxed feeling and sensation. The sympathetic delivers adrenaline, and the parasympathetic decreases heart rate. So they're balances. And that's in our brain, and this is what happens. So what does this have to do with entrepreneurship, right? We're going to talk about that right now. The dark side of entrepreneurship is really deep. From the outside, a lot of people go, oh wow, amazing entrepreneurship, you're after this goal, you're living your dream, you're in Bali, your life must be amazing. But I think a lot of us in this room could probably agree that sometimes being an entrepreneur is fucking hard, and it's lonely, and it's chaotic, and it's stressful, right? A lot of us, especially when we're trying to figure this out on our own, our backs are against the wall. So we're going to talk about some ways that we can mitigate the risks associated with being an entrepreneur. I don't know about you guys, but in my journey as being an entrepreneur, I feel isolation, right? It's just loneliness. And according to many experts, it's not necessarily about being alone. Instead, you feel alone and isolated. And that's how it plays into your state of mind. So again, coming back to we are the stories that we tell ourselves. And isolation leads to depression and suicide, heart disease and stroke, and decreased memory and learning. Right? So if you're alone all the time, if you're isolated, if you feel like you're not connecting to other human beings, it gets dark. And that's a lot of the baseline of being an entrepreneur. I don't know about you guys, but I have days where I'm just at my computer amongst 50 people with my headphones on and I feel like I'm all by myself. Right? That's one of the downsides of entrepreneurship. Overworking. I don't know about you guys, but I've had many, many late nights in bed just trying to get something done. Man, that thing's got to be done tomorrow. But I've been working 17 hours, right? And overworking has become a normal part of society. And as entrepreneurs, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sitting somewhere between 60 to 100 hours of work every week on average. Sometimes I'm at way more. And overworking can lead to heart problems because it disrupts our sleep, right? If you overwork, you're probably more likely to drink. And it leads to poor habits, right? Because if we can't get off our computer at night to go to sleep, how can we create other good habits, right? It's about discipline. And worry. How many people are worried about being an entrepreneur, about money, about business, about deadlines, about things that have to be done, right? Everybody's hand went, like we all worry about being an entrepreneur. It's super difficult, right? And worries, can create a sense of impending doom and unrealistic fears. A lot of time worry is unrealistic. We are concerned about things that actually don't even matter, right? Like, did anyone pick up those paper clips? Like, who cares? It's not even that important, right? And worry increases chronic panic and anxiety attacks. 6 years ago, I was having 5 panic attacks a day. My businesses were at the height of their success, and I was on the ground laying in the fetal position for like 30% of my day, right? Because of the worry. I was so worried about business relationships, my personal relationships, my health, all of these things. And chaos, right? How many people feel like chaotic in entrepreneurship sometimes? Just like, all these things are happening right now, right? And that's the lack of work-life balance, which is something we're going to talk about. Chaos also can be, lack of self-care, negative self-talk, feeling like an imposter, not reaching goals, blaming others, and creating unrealistic expectations, right? Things that I know personally I am guilty of even still. Even after over a decade of being an entrepreneur, I am still guilty of these things. And I have to remind myself, especially with the negative self-talk, like, hey, I can do this. This is just fact right here. 90% of businesses will fail. I've had 2 failed businesses, right? It doesn't mean I didn't learn anything. It just means I got to the point where I was like, this is not working anymore. I'm losing money. I'm losing clients. Whatever this thing is I thought it was going to be just isn't it, right? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us are going to have to face the truth that 90% of businesses will fail. I hope you guys are all in that 10%. I truly do, right? So now this is what we got to talk about, the compounding effects of trauma and entrepreneurship, right? So we know that if you suffered a trauma state, depending on where you fell in that scale of the 10 questions we asked earlier, there is up to a 5,000% increased chance that you are going to be depressed. Now, Dr. Michael Freeman did a study called Are Entrepreneurs Touched by Fire in 2015. And this was a United States study based on entrepreneurship where he asked a series of different questions to determine mental health. And he found that of this survey, 30% of the entrepreneurs asked were depressed. So imagine if you had trauma and you're an entrepreneur, how impactful that would be in your life, right? They found that up to 2,000% increased chance of smoking if you suffered trauma. And if you're an entrepreneur, 22% of entrepreneurs are smokers. Now, we all know smoking is terrible for you. Cancer, lung disease, heart attack. I was a 2-pack a day smoker for a decade, right? And what's funny about that is I promised myself I would never smoke. Didn't work out. You're stressful, trying to get reports done, doing editing, all these things, right? Just like, I need a cigarette to relax, but we're killing ourselves, right? Substance abuse. So we know that trauma survivors are up to 4,000% more likely to abuse substances. But entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely. More research from Dr. Freeman. Entrepreneurs, this is entrepreneurs, not trauma survivors. Entrepreneurs are 6 times more likely to suffer from ADHD, right? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know where I should start, where I should finish. I got 9 things. My kitchen's on fire. What is happening right now? 10 times more likely to suffer from bipolar disorder. I think of all of the stats that I saw in Dr. Freeman's report a couple years ago, that was the one that sat with me the hardest, right? And 2 times more likely to have a psychiatric hospitalization. That's a nervous breakdown, maybe a suicide attempt, whatever that thing might be. There's 2x chance that you will end up in the hospital because of your mental health. And that's just entrepreneurship. But this is why I'm here to talk to you guys. This is the number one most important thing that I think that we need to talk about. The number one darkest part about entrepreneurship is suicide. If you are a trauma survivor, according to the questions that we asked earlier, there's a 5,200% chance that you will end your life. I tried. I got fucking lucky. That's the only reason I'm here. Entrepreneurs are 2 times more likely to kill themselves than people who work for regular, normal 9-to-5 corporate jobs. Dr. Freeman's research shows that more people who are entrepreneurs are going to kill themselves than who are not. That's powerful, right? Especially we know how lonely and isolating and really honestly sad entrepreneurship can be sometimes. This is why we have to be cognizant of the research and the information. We find that more people age 15 to 49 will die via suicide than cancer and murder combined. Entrepreneurs are taking their own lives at an exponential rate. It's terrifying. Just seeing this statistic and understanding the science and having my feet been in those shoes, it's terrifying. And that's why I want to talk about this today. Because understanding the science, we are in this together. Nobody's alone, and especially as entrepreneurs, even though it's isolating, and even though we spend a lot of time alone, like we are in this together. And we're going to talk about supports and ways that we can go through entrepreneurship and trauma and come out the other side better. Come out the other side knowing ourselves better. Self-care is not selfish. Who agrees with that? Yeah, awesome. Your self-care is hands down the most important thing that you can do. And we're going to talk about why. These are 6 practices that I have in my daily life that reduce my stress and increase my productivity. Because to me, I'm going 100 miles an hour typically 7 days a week. And I have to remember like to chill out, man, like relax, do these things, go through my practices. And I find that my practices are the best way that I can be more productive. So writing in a journal. Does anybody write in a journal right now? Yeah, lots of people. That's amazing. Good for you guys. This is one of the best things that we can do. Not only does it help us organize our thoughts, but it has actually been scientifically proven to lower stress and anxiety and wandering thoughts, because you can take all these ideas that are out here, put them into a palatable place, right? There's many different kinds of journals. There's gratitude journals, emotional journals, bullet journals. You can Google journals. There's going to be a million different ones that you can do, right? And mindfulness and meditation. How many people have a meditation or mindfulness practice? Yeah, this is a super important part of it, because as we were talking about earlier, with trauma especially, if your brain is here and your body is here, but we can meditate and we can breathe, we can bring those things back together, right? We can become more associated, we can increase our self-realization, right? That is, for me, meditation is one of the most important things that we can do. And it increases the prefrontal and hippocampal activity and makes your amygdala work the way it's supposed to be. If you're always freaked out, it's really hard to accomplish things, right? And there's so many different meditation practices that you can do. So many different mindfulness. I'm not going to tell you which one's for you, like go figure that out. But I find for me, my best option is just a body scan. For 7 minutes every morning, I just lay down on my yoga mat, set my timer for 7 minutes, and I just go, okay, do I feel my toes? All right. Do I feel my ankles? Okay. Do I feel my knees? And I do that from bottom to the top and then all the way back down. And so no matter what my stress was from the night before or the morning or whatever happened before that 7 minutes, I can get my brain back into my body. And then exercise and yoga. You know, one of the nice things about Bali especially is like, I think we're full of like people who exercise, who go to yoga, who cycle, who move their bodies. That's amazing. But what do you do when you're not in Bali, right? Creating the daily habits that can carry with you into your daily life, no matter where you are in the world, is super important, right? Even if it's just doing some stretches in the morning, some push-ups and sit-ups, just getting your blood flowing and your body moving, right? One of the biggest reasons that exercise is so important is because it releases endorphins, right? And who doesn't like to feel good? Like I love that feeling after a workout where I'm like, I feel like I can conquer the day, right? That's what it's about for me. And honestly, it's like a form of meditation. I feel super like in the moment when I'm lifting heavy ass weights over my head so I don't kill myself, right? And then nutrition, you know, it's the cornerstone of everything, because we are what we eat. You know, it's been linked to either cure or cause cancer. The food that we put in our body aids in everything. And so if we're eating well, we have to worry less about our body being sick. We have to worry less about our mind being sick, right? And we can focus better. And sleep. If anyone, I know I put this on the slide, but if anyone has some tips on sleep, put them in the Q&A. Let's talk about it. Because for me, sleep is my number one nemesis. Right now on my 2019 goals list, sleeping every single night is the number one most important thing in my life. I'm trying to get to 7 hours. Right now I'm at like 5. I think I can do it. So Sleep has been found to be more important than diet and exercise combined. It increases the neurotransmissions in our brains for memory, performance, and problem solving, and it releases DHEA, which is the life hormone, right? Life is amazing. You ever wake up in the morning, you had a great night's sleep, and you're just like, I can do anything, right? Who's had that moment? Yeah, that's DHEA right there. That is life. And mental health days. This to me is one of the most important things that we can do is taking the time to recover. Stepping away from the computers, stepping away from the work, the phone calls, the texts, anything work related, and just doing things that make us happy, right? Maybe your happy thing is going to the beach and watching the sunset or going and having ice cream. Whatever that thing is, take time for yourself. Even if it's every single day, take time for yourself. Your business is not your identity, right? In entrepreneurship, we get tied up into the idea that, oh man, my business relies on me 100% of the time, every single day of every moment of my life. That's not necessarily true, because your business isn't going to do very well if you're sick. Your business isn't going to do very well if your mental health is all over the place. We have to take the time to relax and connect with family and friends, right? I made a huge mistake early on in my entrepreneurial ventures of telling my friends no all the time. I became the no guy. Hey, Michael, do you want to come and hang out and have dinner? Nah, sorry, I'm working. This is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And eventually I was the no guy for so long that my friends stopped inviting me. And eventually my friends list dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. So I challenge you, if you're like me and you were the no guy, start saying yes more. Because even having dinner with friends is mental health care, right? At least it is for me. And I want to talk about writing again, because this is one of the most powerful things for me. So a study done by Gail Matthews at Dominican University showed that people who wrote down their goals achieved them at a rate of 50% more than people who didn't. So in the morning, one of my practices, I write down my goals every day. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a right now goal. It could be a 25 years from now goal. Doesn't matter. I just write it down so I make it real. And writing saves time and keeps us on track, right? If you are just thinking of things and you're like, I have a to-do list, but I don't know what's actually on it, right? You're all over the place. If we can put all those things into one spot, it saves us time. It keeps us out of chaos. It keeps us on track and moving forward. And it's the baseline for action. I have written down things in my life that then in turn are things that I do. Does anyone else ever write anything down and then they do it? Yeah, exactly, right? Writing can be the baseline for action. And it takes out room for excuses and creates accountability. One of the things I think is super important in mental health and entrepreneurship is creating accountability, right? We have to be accountable for ourselves. And for me, writing things down forces me to be accountable to myself, and more so sharing things, sharing our goals, sharing what it is that I want to accomplish with my community, with my friends, with my social network, also creates accountability, because I want to do the things that I say I'm going to do. And sometimes that includes my mental health days. Hey, on Tuesday, I'm going to take the day off. Or for me, December, January last year, I was not on social media at all for the entire time. I hit everyone up and said, guys, I'm taking mental health month. See you later, right? Accountability. And it improves our cognitive memory and our capacity to recall, right? If you write, you take notes. I know a lot of us take tests. We've taken these tests and we've studied and we've written down our notes. And on the back side of it, we pass our test versus not doing anything, right? So writing is super powerful. And then I'm going to call this the elephant in the room, even though we haven't talked about it yet, is that therapy does not make you weak, right? Therapy is one of the absolute most important things that you can do, whether you are an entrepreneur or whether you are a trauma survivor, and especially if you're both. Because therapy can be the guide and the foundation to everything that you want next in life. It can shape a new belief system for you, right? Give you a better understanding of who you are, help you tap into your inner strength, and learn new tools that will lead you to success. It can help you identify what triggers you, right? I used to get triggered by everything. all of a sudden my heart's racing out of my chest. I can't breathe. My pupils are dilated. I'm like zeroed in like an animal ready to freak out because I didn't realize that when I was triggered, I needed to sit with it and understand what was happening, right? That's one of the greatest gifts that therapy has ever given me, is just the space to understand myself more. And it creates alternative solutions to problems, right? A lot of times, and especially in entrepreneurship, we run into a wall and then we're stuck. Well, if someone can help us with the tools to understand how to get unstuck, wouldn't you want to leverage that? Doesn't that make sense? And it's a new support system, right? It's one thing to have families and friends, but it's another thing to have someone who's unbiased, who can help you, who can guide you, who is a professional and has expertise in that area, right? So for me, I want a professional website builder to build my website, right? Wouldn't you want a professional healthcare advocate to help you with your mental health care, excuse me. And it may help you clue into things to make your life and business better. If your life is better, chances are your business is going to be better, right? To me, that's like 1 + 1 = 2. If we take care of ourselves here, we can take care of our businesses better. And I'm going to talk to you about the 6 habits that I mentioned at the beginning. So I came up with this concept called Think Unbroken. Because growing up in a society that we live in now, anytime we come across trauma, people have adverse experiences, the universe kind of tends to say, hey, that person's broken, right? Oh, that person's fucked up. That's not true. I don't believe that. And I'm standing here as proof that I don't believe that. And the reason that I don't believe that is I don't think we're broken. I think we just have to give ourselves permission. And we have to leverage our community. And we have to allow ourselves the space. And we have to understand who we are. And so again, if our health is good, our businesses will grow. And so these are the 6 habits on a journey to thinking unbroken. 1, you have to give yourself the freedom to change. And this is in life and in entrepreneurship, right? You have to give yourself the space to grow. You have to be willing to say, you know what? I need to be able to take my life and move forward. This is important to me. I need the space. I trust that I am making the right decision by moving forward. And sometimes that's really hard, right? One of the hardest things that we ever do is taking the first step, right? Think about in your businesses. You might have thought about it for a long time. You may have written down what you want to do. But the hardest thing was like, hey, I'm going to actually step into this. I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I'm going to make this thing happen. 2, don't judge yourself if you fall back. You have to continue to move forward. Guys, I can't tell you how many times building businesses I hit a roadblock where I was like, shit, what am I supposed to do? And it was really easy then, especially, to judge myself and be like, I'm a fucking loser. No wonder my business doesn't work. Why would it work? We can't do that to ourselves. We have to step forward and learn from our mistakes and grow from the things that happen, right? If you take 2 steps backwards, that's totally fine. Take 10 forward, like step into it, like learn, give yourself the space, right? 3, you're not alone. Leverage your support system. We are in this together. And I guarantee you, every single one of you in this room has another person on planet Earth that you can leverage, that you can ask for help, that you can send a text or a voice note when you're having a shit day, who's got your back. And if you don't, I swear to God, hit me up. I'll be that person for you. Because we are in this together. This is the human race, right? This is an us journey. And the same with entrepreneurship. You might be alone at your desk all day, but so is the person next to you. Do you really think you're that alone? Right? My favorite, fear and excitement are the same emotion, but you decide which serves you. Stepping in entrepreneurship is scary, right? We put everything on our shoulders. We go, all right, I'm selling the car, I'm selling the house, selling the Jordans, everything's gone so that we can create this life. And it's scary. But I challenge you to reframe fear and think about it as excitement. How do I get excited about being an entrepreneur? How do I get excited about this mission that I'm on, right? And you're not broken. You have to give yourself permission to heal. And this is in entrepreneurship and in trauma. We have to give ourselves permission to be successful, to be happy, to be loved. We are the stories that we tell ourselves. And if we're telling ourselves the opposite, whatever that is going to be true. But if we say, you know what, I can do this. I'm amazing. I can be the best programmer, the best photographer, the best videographer, the best blogger, the best copywriter in the world. The more we tell ourselves these things, the more they come true. And it starts with just giving ourselves the permission and saying, yeah, you know what, I can do this. And I'm giving myself the space. And number 6, you guys saw what I looked like 6 years ago. My life is predicated and based. This is the cornerstone for how I live. No excuses, just results. Think about that for a moment. What that means and how you can implement that into your life. No excuses, just results. You're not getting to where you want to go in life. Why? It's probably because you're making an excuse. You're not stepping into full ownership and self-realization of who you are. Why? Because you're probably making an excuse. Your business isn't exactly the way you thought it would be. Why? Because you're making an excuse. Move forward. I challenge you to stop making fucking excuses and move forward for results. This is my favorite quote of all time. Know yourself and you will win all battles. Guys, I created some resources that you can find on my website. The books, podcasts, websites, help centers, and guidance that I've used and accumulated over the years. It's always growing. I'm always adding more. It's always changing and ebbing and flowing like we do as humans. But if you go to my website, michaelunbroken.com/resources, you can see what's available there. And you can contact me here. If there's someone in this room right now who feels isolated, who feels alone, who feels like they don't actually have someone to leverage, fucking hit me up. I'm dead serious. I'm here for you. My DM's open, my email's open, my website's open, my front door is open. We are not alone in this, guys. We are all in this together. And finally, coming around to the end, so I talked about what I do, and I am a trauma survivor mentor. And I help people get out of the vortex. What you saw here is only such a small snippet of what it is that I actually do. I created an entire program around Think Unbroken, which for the last year I put my heart and soul into. And last weekend I held it for the very first time. And of the 12 people that were there, 6 of them came to me and told me that it changed their life. So I welcome you to check this out. And now I have the space for questions if anyone has any. Thank you.
I completely agree with your no excuses, just results.
Mm.
When I used to live in Dubai, I used to make continuous excuses about things and why I wasn't getting shit done. Oh no, I haven't got time for that. Oh no, I'm too busy. Oh, sorry, I've got to do this. And it was this like constant thing. And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And that was when I was like, no, I'm done. I'm making too many excuses and changed my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you on that. No excuses, just results.
I think that's the difference between success and everything else is you have to decide to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Right? You decided I'm not going to make any more excuses. I'm going to move towards being the person that I know I am.
I had a conversation recently about holding yourself accountable, and a lot of people struggle to hold themselves accountable. I don't know whether people in this room might. We say, I think we need to hold ourselves accountable, but we hate holding ourselves accountable. It's that love-hate relationship where we're like, fuck, I'm actually going to do this, and like go forward into it. So have you ever, like, what would you say is like a great way to sort of move past that? I know I've got to hold myself accountable, but how is the best way of like easing yourself into accountability?
I don't think you can. You have to make a decision. Are you going to do this or are you not? Right? And you, yeah, exactly. And you tell a friend, you tell 5 friends, you have a conversation with someone and say, hey, once a week, I need you to follow up and make sure my ass is doing the things that I said I was going to do, because sometimes I'm fucking lazy and I don't do it.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
until you get to the point where it's intrinsic and you go, yeah, I can actually do this myself now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the support of getting me to where I needed to be. I got this,
Yeah.
right? Because eventually the intrinsic motivation that you have that's here is going to be more palatable and powerful than anything that you get from external sources. But it starts at step one and you just going, hey, you know what? I need help being accountable because honestly, I'm slipping. Shit's not going the way that I wanted it to, and I'm stuck, right? When you do that, when you share that and you tell that to your friends, someone is going to step up and help you be accountable for yourself. And I think the important thing to remember is that that person, they need to be a helpful accountability person, right? They can't be a person who's shitting on you.
Yeah.
We already do that enough. We shit on ourselves enough. I don't need another person to do that when I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
I need someone to go, hey, Steph, you know what? You told me to help you. What are you doing? What's going on in your life that you're not moving forward? When you called me, don't waste my time. Let's get this done,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's so true because there are so many times I think being over here as an entrepreneur, you end up supporting a lot of other people who are also going through a journey, especially within Bali, and you sometimes find yourself in that grey area where you help others, and then when you need them to step up and hold you accountable and help you, they end up shitting on you.
Yeah.
Exactly what that is, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
don't be a dick.
You've got to remove those people. And that's why I think if you want to seek the help of accountability, start with the people closest to you, the
Yeah.
people who know you best, because they always have your best interest in mind, right? Your best friend probably isn't going to do that, right? Well, I mean, depends on who your best friend is, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Cool. No one else? Right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I want to say something.
Yes.
Last Saturday, this is, by the way, another question for you. I really enjoyed your presentation. We actually met, I met Michael last week during another workshop. That's why I'm here. But last Saturday, by coincidence, I was with a friend in La Brisa. You might all know that place. And I actually met 3 girls who were doing your workshop, which were the friends of my friends, and I didn't know. So they started talking about doing a workshop about the trauma and everything, and they were really excited. I just wanted to share that with you.
No.
They were like they really enjoyed it. They were still going into it. It wasn't a Saturday evening. So
Yeah, yeah.
The next day it was still the workshop, but they finished it already. But they really enjoyed it. So
Oh.
and it really helped them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Cool.
That's a different workshop today. This is a talk and that's the workshop.
That
Yeah.
was like a 2-day workshop.
Yeah, Think Unbroken is a full 2-day workshop based on a hero's journey. Yeah. Great. Well, if anyone else has questions, you can meet me after this. I want to say thank you guys so much. Thank you to Steph and Tribe Theory. I appreciate the space. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your presence. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.